Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I am Chip here once again, and I'm Duffy Duck here. We are back for some more of the Muxy Toys videos. And yes, welcome back to more Let's Play of Sonic Colors for the Nintendo Wii. So, last time we actually did manage to finish up the entire game while actually exploring through only 2 acts and the final boss battle in the likes of the Terminal Velocity. And even then though, that we managed to save the day, well, Dr. Eggman he's now in a endless void of nothingness, but even then though, yeah. So today for this episode is the fact that we're able to actually move it on into the final 2 parts before we actually finish this Let's Play off, is by considering how the fact that, oh yeah, if you're probably wondering that what this little rainbowy star is usually for, that's actually forms of the staff credit sequence. So if you want to actually replay for that staff credits thing again, then you should be able to actually clarify if you actually just see that long, drawn out staff credit sequence. But even then though, that there should be not much of an issue, and plus you do have the ability to actually skip the entire credit sequence this time. So, yeah, if you're probably wondering, our lives count is actually a little bit more different, and also the S rank counts and even the red star rings count is probably because we're actually using our actual profile, file number 1. So basically we actually got ourselves only 42 extra lives at the moment, and 10 S ranks counts, and even 180 red star rings, which there are all 180 of them. So even then, that we managed to did this back in 2011 after we actually researched on the how to find them all. And as far as a matter of fact though, is that fact that we actually did manage to look up on our original file, which is essentially me and Duffy's file, is that I believe we actually did collected about 84 extra lives, because considering that 8 of them does count for the staff credit sequence as well. So that's worth mentioning about that. And also that we actually only got 10 S rank counts instead of 8. So here we go, folks, on to the moment of truth, the final part of this particular Let's Play, and also the addition to a second part of there as well, is the fact that we're going to be showing you guys this Sonic Simulator mode, which actually functions as a special stage, technically speaking, on the Wii version, whilst the DS version is basically you go through the half pipes and collecting those all kinds of different colored spheres. So, from the start, you can actually just manage to pick only 1-player mode, 1.5 player, or even 2-player mode. So it doesn't matter what player selection you're going to be choosing. So from the start though, if you actually just manage to go through any of these players count, let's go ahead and use Waluigi, because Waluigi's really cool, and plus he doesn't have himself his own game and what have you. So yeah, you start things off where you're going to be playing as Sonic for the rest of the beginning parts of this particular mode. And as soon as you actually collect even more red star rings, as far as you might suggest, you actually unlock some more stuff. Like, for instance, you have the ability to actually play as your Mii onto this little Sonic Simulator mode. And then if you actually pick your character, like for instance, we're going to be using Waluigi for this particular Sonic Simulator mode, is the fact that you can actually change between these different status of your speed. Like, for instance, if you actually put in 1 star, it means that you're running so slow, and if you reach up to 2, it means a little bit slower, but then I believe if you actually reach up to 3 stars, means average, and 4 stars means it's like slightly fast, and the 5 stars is easily the fastest. So yeah, we'll have to go for that setting. So right off the bat though, we actually got ourselves our stage selection screen. There are a grand total of 21 levels in total, expecting 7 game lands in total. So each stage share 3 acts. Even then though, let's go ahead and go for them all. So first off we have is Game Land 1 Act 1. So even then though, now every time you actually go into those Game Land levels, then sometimes you're actually going to be hearing the 8-bit renditions of the actual stages themselves in Sonic Colors. Like, for instance, in Game Land 1 is the fact that we're going to be hearing the 8-bit rendition of the Tropical Resort, which I think is actually pretty cool remix though, kind of think about it. And also, if you probably couldn't tell already, is that the actual level design right there is actually heavily borrowed from the previous Sonic games at this one point. Like, for instance, in the first stage in Sonic Simulator, this is actually based off of Sonic the Hedgehog 1's Green Hill Zone Act 1. But even though, except there are some slightly alterations between the two, like for instance that, although you're still able to come across into this loop-de-loop thing ever since in, the Green Hill Zone's Sonic 1, but even then though, that's a pretty simple stage. So from the start, if you actually just manage to actually, excuse me, that if you probably can tell that our lives count is actually a little bit different, because every time when you start the level up in the during the Sonic Simulator mode, you start things off with only 2 extra 1-ups, and even then, because they can't be bothered to actually give us the ability to actually use your current extra lives. Although, granted though, because it's more likely the arcade style of extra lives as far as that's been concerned. So, yeah, it's advice you might suggest it at this point. And right off the bat though, if you manage to realize about something, if you're able to use your color powers, is that you're going to be hearing the 8-bit rendition of the instrumental version of the Reach for the Stars, which I think is really cool, because even then though, that Sonic Simulator as a whole is basically more likely an 8-bit world, technically speaking, because you could be hearing the 8-bit renditions of the actual levels themselves, so yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. And also it does remind me like the old school Sonic games all over again, when you see some of these level layouts are exactly identical between each other. So you'll see why in just a moment as soon as we actually proceed for this particular Sonic Simulator mode. And by the way folks, is that today was actually forms of the 28th of June, so you know what that means, we only got 2 more days to go until Crash Bandicoot N. Sane Trilogy is about to come out. But even then I still consider seeing these little, a whole bunch of streams on that particular game so far. But even then though, as far as I've heard, they actually started to be going through the first game and then the ended with the third game already. But even then I'm still really looking forward to that naturally. Oh yeah, by the way, for this little item right there, this is actually forms of the Egg Heart tokens, or the Egg Heart medallions. Every time when you're trying to grab one of those, you get yourselves a ton of points while doing so. Seems for somehow that you don't usually perform ranks in this particular types of stages, because all it does is basically score based, so even though it's entirely optional if you want to actually just grab yourselves these particular Egg Heart tokens, because even though that's, it's basically score counts, and even then, it doesn't count for ranking system, so as far as you might actually notice right off the bat. And yeah, eventually, if you actually get towards these little ghoul rings, for instance, if you constantly trying to deal with the jump dashing ability right towards this ghoul ring, sometimes these rings actually pops up, so even then though, you can actually get yourselves quite a few rings in this part, so. And also, I don't really think that rings doesn't count though, I don't think, but even then though, I'm not exactly 100% sure. So, yeah, eventually, until you actually collect even more red star rings, as far as you might guess it by now, that you actually unlock some of these stages, like the Act 2 variations of the Gameland franchise. So, now obviously the third act is definitely the final act, because obviously that's, the number 3 is actually represents the third and the final act, just like how it does it in Sonic the Hedgehog 1, and even especially in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 Metropolis Zone, and even Sonic CD. But even then, that's all there is to say. So yeah, I really don't think they're not going to be evolving through Act 3 in Sonic Mania, so even then, that should be a pleasant surprise, so even then, yeah. So yeah, in this level right there is that we need to actually use to with this little particular blue cube wisp, so even then, that should probably be expected at this point, so let's see if we can actually, oh, darn it, I just totally forgot to jump. So yeah, you can also, kind of think about it, but whenever I first time playing for this particular mode, sometimes I usually get frustrated at one point, but it's just the fact that it's actually the first time I'm actually experiencing these levels. But even then though, that's, again, if you manage to get yourselves all of these 3 lives lost, then obviously that, because, we say 3, because much like it does in Super Mario 64, Sunshine, Galaxy, and Galaxy 2, except Super Mario Odyssey, because Super Mario Odyssey does not actually involve extra lives this time, which I think is actually a pretty pleasant surprise in that regard. And I believe also Super Mario 3D Lands, that also has a tradition of the 0 exact lives, means you only got 1 chance left. But not Super Mario 3D World, because even then, yeah. So, in regards to that though, if you manage to lose all of your lives, then you have to redo the whole level again and you get kicked out of the level, so as far as you may go for at this point, so yeah. So a few things I want to mention about this is that, although before we actually do anything else, before we actually discuss it on this, every time when you actually first time experience with the third act of these variations of these little Gameland levels, sometimes you get yourselves a very fascinating reward, and that was the form of the Chaos Emeralds. Yes, Chaos Emeralds does make an appearance in the Nintendo Wii version of Sonic Colors, but in order to actually get them is by simply just actually completing every single Act 3s in this specific Gameland levels. Even though we already gotten all of them basically, so even then we just have to show you guys all of these types of stages. So once we're done with that, then we pretty much guarantee we can actually just, finish up this particular Let's Play as soon as we actually showcase off if what happens if we actually get all 7 of these Chaos Emeralds. I think you guys who might get the clear of this at this point, it'll probably be Supersonic. But even then, now, unlike the DS version, if you actually just manage to get all 7 of these Chaos Emeralds, you don't get yourselves an extra level in the Wii version. No, instead we actually got ourselves... I don't know what I think about it at the moment, but even then, let's just concentrate on Game Land 2 now in Act 1. So even then, in this particular music theme is actually playing through is actually Sweet Mountain 8-bit version. And also not to mention, this level environment right there is actually heavily borrowed from Marble Zone in Act 1 in Sonic 1. So, yeah, I think for the most part, I'm thinking that for the most of these levels in these particular Sonic Simulator levels are heavily borrowed from Sonic 1 when it comes to the level layout. Although except the fact that these little monitors has not been in there for the moment. So even then, that's all I can really imagine about this, so you need to activate the switch while doing so. So, a few things I want to mention is the fact that recently we managed to realize is that there's going to be a special announcement if you those who actually become a very big fan on the Super Nintendo department. I missed a checkpoint by accident. Anyway, there's going to be an announcement. There's going to be a Super Nintendo Classic Mini is being recently announced, which I think is actually really cool by the looks of it, though. We even know that as far as the game selections goes, that I'm pretty sure in the NES Classic Mini has been helped up for 30 games all in all. But I'm pretty sure in SNES Classic Mini this time around though is the fact that they now actually hold up into 21 games. Those examples will include, I'm not sure if I can find my list for this particular part. Even though we'll have to actually find these out until we actually just manage to research on those. So yeah, for the most part, I was really excited to see how this is going to be turned out to be. So even then, that once again, it's all pre-installed and stuff like that, because as you expected, there's no need to actually place any actual original cartridge of this particular stuff. But even then, that's all there's to really imagine about this. So I wonder what it could do next. Probably the original Game Boy or something, or maybe something related to the Nintendo 64 or something like that, to actually feature the HDMI cables of those kinds of stuff. So anyways, these games are examples are Contra 3 The Alien Wars. In this case, I don't know what's the European version of the specific game name, and also if there's going to be Donkey Kong Country 1. Sadly, I don't think this will not include Donkey Kong Country 2, or even especially Donkey Kong Country 3, sadly. But it's fine enough for the first game in the series, though. So, next up, it was actually Earthbound, which is actually a pretty interesting RPG type of game. Even then, the game usually involves NES included, so even then, I might be curious to try that out. So, darn it! I'm going way too fast in this quick stepping sections. What else is on the list? Sorry, I couldn't speak to that yet, folks. I really do apologize for that, for that one point. So anyways, next we have is Final Fantasy 3. So even then, I'm pretty much sure that that game doesn't seem to get this re-release on the Wii U or the new Nintendo 3DS eShop re-downloadable stuff. But even then, that's all I can really imagine about that. Although I'm not exactly sure when, though. So anyways, next we have is F-Zero, because obviously F-Zero has been pretty great so far, especially for the originals and F-Zero X and even GX most likely, even though GX is probably the hardest game in the entire franchise. But even then, I really do wish if the F-Zero series make a comeback. I mean, sure, it does make a return ever since Nintendo Land, but even then, sometimes the motion control can really mess you up at one point or another. But even then, I kind of wish there's going to be a next F-Zero game coming up on Nintendo Switch. Because every now and then, they now recently announced their new Metroid Prime 4, so even then, that's actually really splendid news. So next game they actually included on this NES Classic Mini is actually not only one, but two Kirby games, which are Kirby Superstar, also known as Kirby's Fun Pack, and also Kirby's Dream Course. So even though, pretty super expected as far as in this point. Next up they actually include is The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, everyone's favorite 2D Zelda experience, which I highly doubt it. Next up, it was actually Mega Man X, which is kind of weird actually, considering that how Mega Man X is the only game they're usually included. I really don't know if that game does include it on the X2 or X3, I'm not exactly sure on X3 though, because even then though, I haven't exactly researched on that too much. But anyway, next we have is Secret of Mana. I can't comment on that because I haven't played that. And it's also, we actually have ourselves Star Fox 1, but in addition to that, we also have ourselves the very first time owners that who actually haven't experienced the entire game so far, and which is actually the undeveloped sequel to Star Fox, which is called Star Fox 2. So yeah, it's pretty interesting, and so much for that. Next up, it actually showcased is Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting, as you expected, Street Fighter, as you should probably expected. And it's also Super Castlevania 4. What? I can't believe I died by this little snooker balls. Yeah, every time when you actually try to just hold me attack onto these snooker balls, they start to roll all over the place. And what makes it a little bit too much of a nerve-wracking to me though with these little types of obstacles like this, is that sometimes they can go really overpowered, and plus they will try to hurt you. So even then though, these particular billiards balls are probably by far the worst enemies about these levels, like for me though. So anyway, enough about this all kinds of stuff. So yeah, Super Castlevania 4, well, since we already got that on Nintendo Wii version, on the Virtual Console version, you know, might be curious to try that out on the HDMI support or something. Next is Super Ghouls and Ghosts, which is probably the sequel to the first Ghost and Goblins series. Even though, as far as I've heard, this can be a little bit too tricky as far as I'm concerned with that, so... Next they actually include is actually Super Mario Kart, because, you know, Mario Kart needs to be there, which I think is always fun. And also Super Mario RPG, The Legend of the Seven Stars, which is kind of odd actually, because considering that how Super Mario RPG only saw the release on Japan and North America, as far as the original cartridge formation. And also not to mention that the European version did manage to re-releasing it on the, not to mention on the Nintendo Wii, but also the Wii U as well. So anyways, now we move on into the next Game Land, which should be Game Land 3, City Bonanza. I believe the music theme on this is actually forms of Starlight Carnival 8-bit. So I really love this rendition of Starlight Carnival actually, because it's more likely it kind of reminds me like I was playing the NES type of game. So anyway, now we got ourselves 2 Chaos Emeralds technically speaking, because every time when we actually just to see this little colored-based fonts right there, and even especially noticeable if you're actually trying to get yourself some Chaos Emeralds done. Basically in this first Game Land, you get yourselves a green Chaos Emerald, and also the yellow Chaos Emerald for the second Game Land. So, the list goes on and on every time you're actually trying to do so. Oh yeah, by the way, if you those who'd be very curious what happens whenever you're trying to decide to deal with the special stages on the DS version of Sonic Colors, you're able to actually get yourselves the corresponding colored spheres. And every time when you do this, I believe you get yourselves 3 different laps. You know, something's a little bit similar to Knuckles Chaotic special stages, but except the fact that you don't have to deal with the time limit or anything like that. So you have to just collect these corresponding colored spheres, which the first lap is usually involving you have to collect blue spheres, and the second lap you have to get these red spheres. And even the last lap, which is actually the lap 3, which actually involves you around collecting yellow spheres. And then once you collect a certain amount of these spheres, then you get also Chaos Emeralds. So yeah, that's how it usually works. And then, yeah, just like how it does in Sonic Rush, special stages, you have to deal with the stylus controls and all that stuff, which I don't mind too much. Alright, so next game on the SNES Mini installed pre-owned games is the form of Super Mario World, because obviously it already includes Super Mario World in various systems so far, expecting the emulators for that as well. Okay, so I believe that this particular variation right there, in this case in this act, this is actually feels very similar to Scrap Brain Zone, but specifically the Act 1 variation, because obviously we don't have ourselves the roulette thing that's been going on, but even then, that's nothing matters too much. So yeah, anyway. And it's also, I found this really surprising, and I was really happy about this at this point, as far as the game selections goes. They actually include, the very first time ever since the original cartridge formation of Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, they now finally include Yoshi's Island on the SNES Classic Mini. So I was really hyping for that, but even then, I might be curious to actually... No! No! Oh god, we got trapped. We got trapped by those still flashy yellow blocks. Oh well. Nothing matters anyway though, because we're pretty much almost at the halfway point of Sonic Simulator already. Now I'm pretty sure this might actually be the final part of this level right here, but before we actually do this, however though, we just need to double check of what's up ahead right there. Oh crikey, this whole button's here. Oh, let's grab these little white wisps, so just in case we need to get some boost going. It doesn't help when these, you know, evil billiards balls is trying to drive you insane. So anyways, yeah, I'm really glad that it's actually added into the list of games on the Super Nintendo Classic Mini as far as Yoshi's Island is concerned. Because I haven't exactly played the original Yoshi's Island. Well, technically we already played Yoshi's Island DS and also Yoshi's New Island for the 3DS, which I found was a kind of a little bit too much lackluster compared to what it does in the originals. It was especially noticeable in Yoshi's Island DS because I found the soundtrack is a little bit too underwhelming. So, yeah, that's what I can think of. There's only 2 games left to discuss. There's actually forms of the number one's going to be involved. It's actually forming of Super Metroid. Super Nintendo, that's if you actually be very curious to try that game out, but this time with the HDMI cable. Even though technically though that the Wii U usually does that first. But I was expecting that it might actually bring out some bright color colors this time around, just like it does it in the classic NES Mini. So even then though, I was being curious about this. I'm actually trying to get myself the classic Mini variations of the NES and the SNES all at the same time, so even then though we can hopefully try to play those retro games all in one through actually just to deal with it in the HDMI support. So even then though, I really don't know if we can consider trying to go for these particular Let's Plays with all these. But at least as I was expecting if the Yoshi's Island would be involved, so as far as I was concerned about that, because as far as the original cartridge of Yoshi's Island is getting a little bit too expensive at one point, but I digress. So and the final game they actually did recently put in the list on the specifically on the SNES Classic Mini, and that was the form of Super Punch-Out, which is essentially a spiritual sequel to Punch-Out for the NES. So even then, as you expected. So, anyways, that's all I can really say about this little discussions to make for this particular NES Classic Mini, or in this case SNES Classic Mini, which I believe is actually one of the greatest things in the world. So even then, that should be expected. So, in regards to these little types of traditions, I don't know if it's just me, but I'm pretty sure that, yeah, never mind. Forgot what we just said about earlier ago. So, yeah, that's what I can say about the NES or SNES Classic Mini. So we're really looking forward to that, how this is happening. So, expecting what they do next. The N64 maybe? Or probably the Game Boy most likely, because I have really no idea what it's going to do next until 2018. So it looks like it's summed up like this. Like in last year, they already announced the NES Classic Mini, and now they actually announced the SNES Classic Mini. So pretty interesting. So I believe for the release date on the SNES Classic Mini is going to be released. I believe it's going to be sometime at 29th of September. And this is specifically in the American and Europe, as far as I remember rightly. So here we go on to Game Land 4 in Act 1, and I believe this particular level environment is actually heavily borrowed from Spring Yard Zone, also from Sonic 1. Like, you know, like the actual premise of this is actually looks exactly identical between one or another, but except the fact that I don't think we can actually go all the way up. So even though we have to spend most of our time just to go inside. So that's as far as I remember that rightly. So we're going to be hearing the 8-bit rendition of Planet Wisp, which I think is kind of a cool music as far as I've been concerned. So yeah, as far as the price of SNES Mini, I'm presuming it's more accurately £79.99 or something like that. But even though I was really concerned if I don't know if it's just me, but I'm pretty sure I was be really curious to actually get that particular mini SNES Classic Mini. As far as specifically for the Yoshi's Island game, because we haven't really got into the SNES version on this Yoshi's Island game. Although we might be curious to try out the Game Boy version of this as well. But even then, I just need some little bit more time left. So, regardless of that, I'm still looking forward to that. So even I know. Let's just hoping if it doesn't usually run out of stock again, unlike how it does it in the NES Classic Mini, because I believe I was concerned about this is because everyone else is so desperate to need to actually have one. Yeah, as far as I was going to be hurt from that already. Anyways, I believe we're going to be doing with Act 2 a variation of, you know, Gameland 4, and it's going to be most likely entirely in 3D. So even then, there's going to be a lot of moments where we need to dodge a lot of these attacks right there, and especially noticeable that we're going to be boosting to win. Ah, how in the world did that happen right there? I'm pretty sure they usually spawns into those electricity fences, so even then, that's not that bad to actually avoid though, it's just that I wasn't paying too much attention. And there's also these giant motorbugs right there, which I think is— oh, darn it! I totally forgot the bottomless pit was there. Ah, so many bottomless pits in this place. But even then though, that is not too much of a big of a deal, because we need to take ourselves slowly down. So even then though, that— and also at the same time, I'm pretty sure we're pretty much almost towards the end of the level as a matter of fact, which I'm pretty sure we're at right now. So even then though, yeah, that's what I can imagine. Alright, so I think we're actually on the halfway point of Sonic Simulator mode, so even then though, we only just got about one more act in Gameland 4, and then we're about to be moved on to Gameland 5, 6, and 7.